Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Maupay nga aga. So far, we have in our Zoom room, we have 85 participants. And also, we would like to greet our viewers at our Facebook Live. So, welcome to our third day of this international conference. So, before we formally start, I would like to share to everyone these online rules, no, our virtual etiquette. So, for our participants, I would like to request your name in our Zoom room. It should appear coded by your honorific first name dash affiliation. Example, Sergio Neil dash SSU. So as much as possible, please turn your cameras on all throughout the duration of the event. Should you have questions, please feel free to key them in on our chat box. It will be addressed by the person concerned. Okay, so for some reminders also, first, turn off notifications. Those little pings might cause distractions to other meeting attendees. Then turn the lights. If you can, get proper lighting. Sit near a window or have a bright lamp nearby. Look at the camera when talking. I know it's a bit awkward at first, but the audience will appreciate your eye contact. Mute your microphone if you are not talking and once you've been admitted to the Zoom room. Clear the space behind you. See if you can move your camera so it's directed to a wall or a clear spot. But since we have a virtual background, especially designed for us by IZN Global Collective, we are encouraged to use it. Please come early. If someone is late, there is no need to recap. Keep it professional. Maintain professional posture and appearance. Stay present. You might miss out on key information. Since we are using a webcam, let's use attentive body language. And finally, give some grace. Be patient with other participants and allow some grace for any communications that occur. Everybody is encouraged to be active and participative. So that's it. Our some of our reminders, and we will be starting in a bit. So we'll shoot first some videos, and we will be right back to formally start this day's sitting. Okay, maupay nga aga. Good morning, everyone. So I would like to reiterate as what I have said earlier. We would like to request everyone to please use the virtual background, especially designed for the iPOVCON 2020. So this is Jonil. I will be your MC for this morning sitting on the third and last day of this second international conference on poverty alleviation and sustainable development, carrying the theme living and rising above the crisis. So finally, we are on the culminating day to crown this very important gathering of scholars, social scientists, and researchers from the different corners of the world. And we, the Samar State University, together with our partners of this event, are truly grateful with your participation and valuable contribution to realize all these things. So we hope that you will join us in the remainder of this day's sitting as we carry on towards the closing of this activity. Without further ado, and to formally commence this morning's sitting, I would like to enjoin everyone to please direct your attention onto your screen for an opening prayer. Okay, so again, maupay nga aga aton nga tanan. Good morning, everyone. A great morning to all the viewers and participants of this conference. Before I yield the screen to the Honorable Mayor of Catbalogan City, I would like to share with you a short recap of yesterday's proceeding. So yesterday, the second day of this conference, we have had the parallel paper presentations of 50 researchers from the different researchers, all the way from Malaysia, Vietnam, of course, the Philippines, among others. These paper presentations are along the tracks on human crisis and management, resource technology and products for crisis management, organization preparedness and response to crisis, and finally on environmental management. Of course, yesterday was highlighted by the chairperson of the Commission on Higher Education, no less than the Honorable J. Prospero A. de Vera, who graced us a keynote speech in the morning. In the afternoon, meanwhile, we had the continuation of the parallel paper presentations. So this morning, to start with this conference, I will give the moment to the Honorable Mayor of Catbalogan, City Mayor Dr. Alleviation.
Good day, everyone. The spread of COVID 19 has caught us all off guard. It is a global threat that requires a global response involving all countries. Everyone has been negatively affected by it, especially the poor. Even those that were not considered to be poor are falling under this category due to the pandemic. The Philippine Institute for Development Studies said in August that the COVID 19 impact in the economy could lead to 1.5 million Filipinos becoming poor. According to them, the number of poor Filipinos can increase up to 5.5 million. With lockdowns and other restrictive measures imposed to fight this pandemic, many have had their source of income compromised, leading to inadequate financial support for their daily needs. This is the major challenge for us government leaders to find balance between keeping the community safe from the virus and preventing the people from falling deeper into poverty. The city government of Catbalogan has made sure to support the community during lockdowns by providing them with relief assistance, which included cash, food, medicine, and hygiene kits. Family and tricycle drivers were also provided with livelihood assistance during the height of the pandemic. Establishments such as restaurants, stores, and hotels were forced to close. The city government sought ways to let the establishment generate income in this so-called new normal. The city government and the owners of this establishment held a meeting and agreed upon terms that would guarantee their continued operations while ensuring the safety of both customers and employees. Food establishments and stores were allowed to operate provided that they follow proper protocols established by the DOH or Department of Health. The Joint Inspection Team was assigned to monitor the activities of said establishments. Hotels were allowed to operate only for isolation facilities and quarters for frontliners. To lessen community transmission while allowing vendors to have income, we have activated the Catbalogan Barangay Market or B Market. Selected barangays were allowed to open their marketplaces where vendors identified by the City Economic Enterprise and Public Utility Office were allowed to sell their products. We have also launched the Catbalogan Mercago, the goods on wheels, which is basically a traveling marketplace with designated routes and schedules. The main purpose of this is to bring the goods to the people to lessen their exposure outside and to let vendors generate income. We also have the Catbalogan e-market, which is a free delivery service for people who want to order anything from the market. All they have to do is to send their orders through text or a Facebook message on the official page, and they will get their orders the next day without service charge. For those who don't have the patience to wait for a day, we allow delivery services from HiBes and HiMac to operate. Although not for free, the good thing is about this is to they generate income while keeping people from going outside. Cooperatives in the city use the situation to generate income by making quality and affordable masks which were bought by the city government and distributed to the frontliners and selected barangays. To assist students with their online classes and to help them adjust to the new normal, the city government, through the DepEd City Division, provided them with tablets and radios. The city government has exerted tremendous effort to flatten the curve while alleviating poverty. But to be completely honest, sometimes I am very much confused. We are told to obey the directives of the national government agencies, but we also have to listen to the pleas of the people, especially the poor. Oftentimes, the directives and the pleas clash with each other. We are facing extraordinary times, which need extraordinary measures. I can confidently say that we did our best to fight both pandemic and poverty. But is it enough? No. The battle against the pandemic is not yet over. Just because you are over it doesn't mean the pandemic is over. The battle against poverty is even harder to win. Once a vaccine is available, the virus will be eradicated. But poverty will take years and lots of research, cooperation, and multi-level intervention to end it in all its forms. There is no easy way out of this situation. But with our combined passion and efforts, I have no doubt that we will not only live in this crisis, but we will rise above it. Thank you, everyone, and keep safe. There is no easy way out of this situation. But with our combined passion and efforts, I have no doubt that we will not only live in this crisis, but we will rise above it. Thank you, everyone, and keep safe.
Okay, thank you so much. That was the Honorable Mayor Dexter Uy of the City Government of Catbalogan. Thank you, Mayor, for sharing your insights as well as your efforts, particularly on this time of crisis. At this moment, I will yield the screen to the President of Northwest Samar State University, the co-host of this conference, for his message. Gentile ladies and men, Dr. Benjamin L. Picayo.
Thank you, Sir Janelle. To our esteemed guest speakers for today, Dr. Anthony Halog of the University of Queensland, Australia, Dr. D. Pong Van of Traven University of Vietnam. Of course, we have Ms. De La Serna of NAPSI, National Anti-Poverty Commission. To the respected leaders of the province of Samar from the 2nd and 1st District, to our Honorable Governor, Michael Tan, our Honorable Mayor of Balogan City, who delivered a message a while ago, Honorable Dexter Oy, our Congresswoman of the 2nd District, Honorable Shiri Anten, and of course from the 1st District of Samar, the Mayor of Calbayog City, Ronaldo Aquino, and the Congressman of the 1st District, Edgar Mary Sarmiento. Our SOC presidents who are on board today, headed by our host president of SSU, President Malen. Participants, moderators, facilitators, ladies and gentlemen, poverty warriors, good morning. This iPOVCON looks at reducing poverty in our communities through the lens of human resiliency and management capabilities amidst crisis. Core construct and the strategies presented by practitioners and presenters will be in the trenches working on sustainability, poverty reduction, stabilization, emergency resources, financial literacy, workforce development, organization, and many more. At this conference, we learned best practices from those who have built successful programs to address poverty in their communities. Organizations and institutions, this is an opportunity to move outside the box and to create new opportunities to share among other participants. Moreover, we are working towards a common goal, not alone. You heard stories of success from presenters who have improved their resources and stabilized their lives. These are the most powerful messages of the conference. Transitioning from poverty to self-sufficiency and self-reliance while experiencing the most radical events in their lives. Furthermore, since today is the last day of this second International Poverty Conference, may our experiences serve as a reminder to us that we are a part of a movement in poverty reduction, and we get strength to go back and continue working on stability strategies, especially nowadays that the pandemic had set us in global crisis. With this, I am hoping that through iPOVCON 2020, wider collaborations and partnerships will be forged to conquer the number one problem or enemy in Samar or in the whole country. And we should recognize the role of state universities and colleges in the region in addressing and alleviating poverty, not only in the province of Samar, but the whole region. With this, thank you and a good day.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Picayo. That was Dr. Picayo, the president of Northwest Samar State University, our partner, our co-host of this second International Conference on Poverty Alleviation and Sustainable Development. Now, friends and colleagues, fellow warriors of poverty alleviation, the Vice President for Administration and Finance, Dr. Lydia A. Gonzalez, will do the honor of introducing to us the first keynote speaker for the day. Dr. Gonzalez, ma'am.
A wonderful morning to everyone watching through Zoom and FB Live of the Second International Conference of Poverty Alleviation and Sustainable Development with the theme, Living and Rising Above the Crisis. Gentlemen and ladies, it's a great pleasure for me to introduce our speaker today, who is going to talk on the topic Rethinking Biomass Waste for Circular Bioeconomy, a strategy for sustainable livelihood and poverty alleviation. Our speaker started from a humble beginning, but through hard work and dedication, were able to acquire his bachelor's degree in chemical process engineering and graduated as magna cum laude and class valedictorian at University of Mindanao. Likewise, he possesses multiple postgraduate degrees such as Masters in Engineering at Asian Institute of Technology, Thailand, Masters of Business Administration at Monash University, Australia. He also holds a PhD in Industrial Environmental Economics from Karlsruhe Institute of Technology, Germany. He likewise received his graduate certificate in Environment and Sustainable Development from United Nations University, Tokyo, Japan, and a certificate in Sustainability Assessment in Transboundary Context, Vienna University of Economics and Business in Austria. Currently, our speaker is a lecturer of Earth and Environmental Sciences and continuing academic staff at the University of Queensland, a former professor in industrial ecology and sustainable bioeconomy in University of Maine, USA. Our speaker is a hard-working researcher and academician with over 20 funded research projects since 2004. His research focuses on the sustainability of human nature complexity through understanding the nexus of material and energy systems. Over the years, he has been working on the foundation of industrial applications of circular bioeconomy greening supply chains, life cycle management, green economy, sustainable operations, life cycle sustainability assessment, and resource management. He's been all over the world due to his love for research and innovation. He has been a visiting research scholar and fellow in several leading research institutions in Europe, North America, and Asia. At present, he is serving as Australia Germany Research Ambassador since September 2019. As prolific speaker, he has given keynote talks worldwide to impart his experience and expertise in green supply chains, circular economy, and industrial sustainability. In addition, he has served on different grant review panels in the USA, Europe, and Asia, as well as on several technical and organizing committees in conferences over the past years and involved in editorial boards in peer-referred journals. Bold-spirited, our speaker hurdled countless challenges in his professional career, and as a result, he had been awarded highly competitive early career fellowships in Japan, Canada, and the USA. Gentlemen and ladies, please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker this morning, the articulate Dr. Anthony Hallow.
Thank you very much for that introduction. Good day from Brisbane, Australia. Magandang araw sa inyong lahat at maayong buntag sa inyong tanan. Let me share to you my screen. Okay. Firstly, I would like to say thank you for the invitation to share with you this innovative idea of circular bioeconomy. But prior to that, I would like to say that I'm so thankful that I am a part of this conference, whether it's national, international conference on sustainable development and poverty reduction. Hopefully you have a fruitful discussion on different opportunities to reduce poverty, whether you consider the social economic dimension, the political, or even the economic dimension of poverty. And hopefully you also partly cover some issues related to the environmental dimension of sustainability. But today, let's have a different lens on how we might be able to address poverty reduction. In today's talk, in this keynote talk, I would like to explore with you the idea of how we can maybe rethink the biomass waste, because I know that Region 8, Samar and Leyte, and I think most of the regions in the Philippines are agriculturally based. And therefore, there are a lot of biomass or even biomass waste that are lying either in the landfill or anywhere in the ground. So I would like to explore with you how we can tap into these resources and convert this into value-adding products, particularly higher value-adding products, such that we can maybe sell these products within the locally, regionally, or maybe potentially, if we can scale this up, we can export this to foreign countries. Because the notion of circular bioeconomy actually is really finding value out of the biomass waste. And even the one related concept, circular economy, is really finding value at every stage of the supply chain, because we have to realize now that all developed countries are now investing in this innovative idea at every stage of the supply chain, which means they are identifying the emissions and waste at every stage of the supply chain, and they are thinking on how they can convert this into value-adding products. And I would like to challenge the Philippines as well as other developing countries to also do the same, to contribute to what we call the UN SDG goals, actually, to which is, we know that the first goal is no poverty, the second is no hunger, and in particular, related to my talk today, is the Sustainable Development Goal 12, which is responsible consumption and production. So I would like to explore this idea. So it could be a strategy. There are many strategies actually, or opportunities to reduce poverty in Sama and Leyte and any other regions in the Philippines. But in particular, let's explore the idea of circular bioeconomy and why there are a lot of governments and organizations globally are interested to push this idea, because this is, in a way, if we would like to make our people entrepreneur more innovative and contribute to the local regional economic development, it's about time for the Filipinos and any other people in developing countries also to invest in R&D, to do some analysis in such a way we can sell value-adding products. So in a nutshell, that is what I would like to say, but let me continue to the details of my talk. So firstly, I would cover the context, why we are doing this kind of research, particularly with relevance to sustainable development. I will cover what is the global trends in terms of waste. Then we will talk about how we can transition to what we call a resource-efficient circular economy. And then what are the approaches? So I would like to put forward what are the transdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary system thinking approaches for sustainable circular economy. What are those basic principles for integrated waste and resource management? And then we will talk about briefly on what is circular bioeconomy in a nutshell, and what are those action plans that we can operationalize, and what are our key roles, whether we are an LGO, a local government unit, whether the national government, the organizations, the academy, as well as the people. So we will talk about that in this talk. So the question that I have been grappling actually for many years since I've started this kind of research when I was in the United States is, what complex system problems are we trying to solve? Why we are so passionate actually in this what we call sustainable development goal? Why did we formulate what we call sustainable development goals per the United Nations Convention? Firstly, we want to have enough energy as well as food that our constituents, our population need. Whether we are talking about alternative, renewable or non-renewable energy, we want to have enough of it. Secondly, we would like to enhance the socio-economic condition of our people. Whether we talk at the national level, where we want to alleviate poverty, the reduction, or at a personal level, where we want to provide enough for each constituent in our community in terms of enhancing their income, but without this what we call environmental and resource security, without enough biomass, without capitalizing the natural resources. The top two are in a way futile to consider. So the challenge for all of us, particularly in developing countries, is what actions that we need to take in such a way we can respond to these above challenges when we transition to what we call inclusive, sustainable, circular economy in this what we call post-COVID-19 era, which we know we have experienced a lot of difficulties, particularly of this virus. So let's look first on the relationship between social, economic, and the natural system. What is the business as usual, the current prevalent paradigm of thinking in the social economic system? So we know that resources are being consumed, whether it's biotic, abiotic, whether it's water and land. And the current socio-economic system we have is what we call linear economy system. When I say linear economy system, is that we extract the raw materials, and then we make whatever product we like, we use it, but we dispose it to the environment. So we create emissions and waste. So in a way, we extract the resources from Mother Earth, and then we dispose the emissions and waste to the Mother Earth. And this has resulted to a lot of problems. And one of those is the global warming, the climate change, and there are a lot of environmental issues. So therefore, we need to change our social economic system. We need to change the current paradigm, the current mentality of the social economic system. It's time to shift, to transition actually, to live what we call the business as usual linear economic system, because it has contributed to a lot of problems, as shown in this, which is the carbon footprint, right? So whether we are talking about the total carbon emissions, right? So it shows here, when I say carbon footprint or carbon emission, we are talking greenhouse gases. So different industries are contributing this. The agricultural sector is contributing a lot, as well as even those emissions from the landfills are contributing a lot. And whether we can divide that in terms with respect to the population, and we can see here the different countries that are contributing the most. But I think the challenge now, in accordance to UN SDG goal, is really how we can reduce the absolute greenhouse gases, because the Earth is continually, it's rather the temperature of the Earth is continually rising, which contribute to a lot of what we call catastrophes and calamities. And some of this you have heard in the news, you have seen in the internet, and you have watched in the TV. You can see flooding, you can see, maybe you have heard El Nino, La Nina, and because of that, because of the increasing global temperature, it continues to rise. The drought problem, which our farmers, our landowners are actually experiencing. It's not only the Philippines are experiencing this, developing countries, as well as the developed world, are experiencing all of this environmental challenges, which actually worsen the plight of the poor people, which worsen the poverty situation in many affected areas. So if we're gonna look also the waste situation, the waste generation, because the landfill issue is a big problem in the Philippines and many developing countries. And based on some research, the waste by itself contribute to greenhouse gases, contribute to the global warming. And if we kind of look into the South Asia and East Asia and the Pacific, where the Philippines is located and most of the Asian countries are located, you can see here that it's continued to rise. The waste are continually rise, and most of this are going to landfill. And it's really a big challenge because also the poor people are being impacted rather by this a lot of accumulated landfill, and some of this and most of this rather are due to biomass waste. So if we look on the global waste composition here, you can see that around 44% are actually attributed to food and green, which means the organics, the biomass waste. Then you can have around almost 50% are attributed to food and green. Then the paper and carbon, which is also derived from forestry or biomass. Then there are 12% also from plastic. And if you can see in terms of where they go, 32% are being composted globally. And there are also landfill, which is around 25%. So the question now is how we can redirect this waste instead of going to landfill or instead of going to, beside composting, what we can do in such a way that maybe this could be a strategy to help the poor, to help the region in the Philippines actually, to alleviate this poverty scenario in the Philippines, and hopefully it can contribute to the livelihood of women, of those poor people, and those that are affected by whatever difficulties. So what are those ways? Now let's have to think about what are those ways that we take into account. So in agriculture, you have seen about fertilizer, pesticide runoff. There are drums, there are animal waste, there are crop residues, the wastewater, and household too. There are food waste, green waste, wood and textile. And I think some of you can really relate to this because these are actually, regardless where you are, whether in developing or developing countries, you encounter this waste. It's just a matter of how much the volume are you contributing to this kind of waste. And in particular, food waste is really a big issue. Now, as you've seen in the diagram, almost 50% is contributing to food waste, and 1/3 of this food produced is lost or wasted. And as you can see in this diagram, most of the waste actually are coming from fruit and vegetables, from restaurants and takeaway food. So you can also develop similar kind of study maybe in the Philippines to account or quantify the amount of waste, whether food waste, biomass waste, and then another type of waste as shown here, where there are also manufacturing waste, there are also commercial waste, e-waste, food waste, and even building and construction. So there are a lot of waste at every stage of the supply chain, at every stage of the value chain. And that is why it is time that regardless where we are, to identify and quantify this waste and emissions and what would be its potential product that we can produce out of this waste, because there are already technologies that could really convert this waste into value-adding products. So in terms of costs, I think most of us are only aware about the cost of trade waste, but in particular is the landfill disposal waste. And I think most of you are familiar with this. We just talk about the landfilling and all of this, but there are a lot of ways hidden. And if you can see, and if you can account all of this, then you would see that it's really useless to maintain waste or even maintain a landfill. It's about time to convert this waste, maybe recycle, reuse, reduce this in such a way that we can minimize our costs, and maybe this cost are actually contributing to reducing our revenue or our financial bottom line. So I think I will not show that to you, but I think let me try if we can show that to you, the last call for Antol. Let me show that this is just a small video clip, and hopefully this would enhance our this short talk.
Once upon a time, there was a man who invented chess. The king was so pleased, he offered the man a reward. The man, who was very wise, told the king that he would only want 1 grain of wheat for the first square of the chessboard, 2 for the second, 4 for the third, and so on, doubling the amount for each square of the chessboard. The king said yes, and at the end of the game he had to abdicate, because he had no more grains of wheat to pay his debt. That is the nature of exponential growth, and our chessboard is planet Earth. 40 years ago, a report by a team of scientists from the MIT shook the world. They designed and ran the first global computer model ever, suggesting humanity should adapt to the physical limitations of planet Earth in order to avoid overshoot and collapse.
During the last year, a group of us at MIT have been looking at exponential growth of our global social and economic system. We've been led to 5 basic conclusions. There are physical limits to growth, which, given current trends, are very likely to be encountered even during the lifetime of our children.
This growth is going to stop. It must stop, and it will stop.
Second, the most likely outcome of running into these limits, if we continue to ignore them, is that we'll overshoot those limits and collapse.
I think that many people have found a new way of making fools of themselves in not recognizing that there are limits to human expansion.
We appear to have a viable alternative to this outcome, one in which population and material production could be brought into balance with the finite environment and with our resources.
We have learned that more is not necessarily better. That even our great nation has its recognized limits.
Fourth conclusion is that it's realistically going to take 50, 100 years or more to reach that alternative in an orderly fashion.
We believe then and now there are no limits to growth and human progress when men and women are free to follow their dreams.
And finally, every year we delay decreases our ultimate options.
Their report was published in a book entitled The Limits to Growth, which turned out to be the most controversial environmentalist bestseller of all time.
There can be no doubt what one subject has aroused most controversy among scientists during the past 12 months. I mean, of course, the prospect of doom for mankind because of pollution, overpopulation, overuse of resources.
Well, I think that the conclusions of this study are completely wrong. If you check what happens if you vary all your assumptions together, then I understand from the Science Policy Research Unit at Sussex, who have actually been checking your model, the catastrophe disappears altogether.
That's interesting. I spent all last Friday down with the Science Policy Research Institute. They didn't indicate that.
Well, this is developing debate who spoke to them last. I spoke to them this morning.
After having spent 40 years fighting for their message, the authors gathered where the Limits to Growth saga began. Which options do they think we have today?
40 years ago, it was still theoretically possible to slow things down and come to an equilibrium. Now that's no longer possible. We are coming into a period of uncontrolled decline. We need now to start focusing specifically on the issue of resilience. If we go through this period of decline without foreknowledge, without preparation, I fear that it will strip away many of our fundamental values.
The need is for early and strong action to avoid the problems that are already here and that will get worse in the future. The horrible fact is that democracy and capitalism will not solve those problems. We do need a fundamental paradigm shift in the area of governance. So it's the national and international governance thing, which is what one ought to be debating when one is looking ahead.
Personally, I'm an optimist. Personally, I believe in the brilliance of human beings. The past 40 years makes you doubt it a little, but I do believe humans are brilliant.
I don't consider myself any better than any other human being, but I have lived for 20 years with these global models. And I can see, I instinctively understand the global results of personal actions that I take. And I know what kind of world I want to live in. I don't want to live in a collapsing world. I don't want to live in a world, as Jürgen says, it's getting grayer and grayer. And it costs more and more and more to maintain even a decent standard of living. I want to live in a sustainable world where there is no poverty, no hunger, and no erosion of the Earth's resources.
According to the Limits to Growth authors, the environmental and economic crisis we are going through are part of the same global crisis. They don't hold the truth, and they have different views on the future, but we should listen to them for the sake of new generations.
So hopefully you get some idea there that there are reasons behind this crisis, and maybe this is even this COVID-19 there are lessons to be learned actually from this COVID-19 pandemic crisis that we need to be aware. And that is why there is a call to shift our current paradigm, and that is being mentioned in that short video clip. And I think even in this case, in this COVID-19, we are also called to change our mindset from what we call linear economy system to what we call circular economy system. So now let's talk about the challenge of sustainability, the sustainable development. So in the field of industrial ecology and circular economy, we have this master equation where the environmental impact is directly proportional to the population, which means that when the population rises, the emissions as well as the waste will also rise. Similarly, when the GDP will also improve economically, and may either at a personal or at a national level, when that improves, that also contributes to an increasing environmental emissions and waste. And depending on the technology, the efficiency of the technology, on how advanced the technology we are using, and if we are using an old technology, that will also impact the amount of emissions and waste. So we're actually discussing a lot of this in the field of industrial ecology and how we can move towards what we call strong sustainability model rather than this Mickey Mouse triple bottom line model, because we would like to argue that, that the economic system is just a subset of the social system, and the social system is just a subset of the natural or the biosphere. So it's really important that we need to respect Mother Earth actually as we address these sustainability challenges, these poverty alleviation challenges that we are confronted. So sustainable development requires us to really understand the interlinkages, the interconnectedness of the triple dimension of sustainability, whether we are talking about the ecological aspect, the social aspect, as well as the economic system. It is critical that we need to take a system approach, right? Holistic approach actually, that these different interplaying factors are interconnected. They are interplaying. We cannot just simply segregate. We cannot really apply what we call a band-aid approach, a reductionist approach, because that won't solve the problem. We have used reductionist approach on the past decades actually, and it has only resulted to a new set of problems. And hopefully we can deal with this current problems we have right in a systematic way, in such a way that we won't create another set of problems. So we have heard about these UN SDG goals. There are 17 of them. And the first one is no poverty, right? Followed by zero hunger there. So there are 17 goals. And related to this conference, we have to focus on poverty reduction. We have to improve sustainable communities, responsible consumption and production. And they have established 169 targets and 232 indicators, which are actually social, economic, and environmental indicators. And it covers the triple dimension of sustainability. And I think a lot of governments actually are being strongly encouraged to operationalize the UN SDG goals at the national, regional, or even at the local level. And I think hopefully out of this talk, you will learn something on how we can possibly operationalize these UN SDG goals with the hope that we can reduce poverty. So what are those goals in particular? I won't talk about SDG goal 1 and 2, but in particular, goal 12, which is responsible consumption and production, which is related to the biomass waste. So according to this goal, that by 2030, we have to achieve a sustainable management and efficient use of the natural resources. So in this context, we are talking about the biomass. And in terms of the food waste, we need to half of this per person. We need to reduce our food losses along the production and supply chains, and even the post-harvest losses, which is very common actually in the developed countries. And we have also to reduce the waste generation, either through prevention, reduction, recycling, and reuse. So this is actually, I would say this goal 12 is actually cross-cutting across actually the 17 goals in the UN SDG. So therefore, as I've argued, it is important to shift from what we call take, make, dispose economic system to what we call circular economic system, from waste management to circular economy, and hopefully via R&D, innovation, systemic innovation is very important in social economic context because they are more radical and leapfrogging rather than the reductionist, autonomous technological innovation. And hopefully via the academe, via the higher educational institution, in partnership with the local government units and the national government, you can work in tandem to be innovative, to become more entrepreneurial in spirit, actually, so that you can propose value-adding products, actually, that hopefully you can sell that in the local market, as well as in the regional, even maybe export this when you are able to establish an economic scale. So what is circular economy? So let's define it formally. The intention of circular economy is really to maximize the use and the value of the resources. So in this context is the biomass resources. And we would like to eliminate waste. So as much as possible, we need to think on how we can convert this biomass waste into value-adding products. And it follows the idea of what we call cradle to cradle, or what we call life cycle, which I will briefly cover later on. And we are taking what we call a whole of system perspective, actually, a system thinking approach rather than a reductionist approach or a band-aid approach in solving a problem. So this is the whole notion of circular economy. It's like a butterfly. But in this particular talk, we are focusing on the renewables, the biological materials, because this is relevant to the summer and later, actually, because you have more biomass and probably biomass on the ground. So there are a lot of possibilities, actually, that you can explore here. You can produce biogas, biochemicals, or bionutrients, and so on. So that is the idea of what we call circular bioeconomy that I would like to put forward, actually, and hopefully we could develop a similar, maybe particular industry in the Philippines and other developing countries, unlike like also here in Australia and other developed world, because I would like the Philippines as well as the developing countries also to be at par, actually, with the developed countries, actually, particularly with this possibility and opportunities, actually, in the circular bioeconomy field. So when I talk about circular economy, actually, there is a requirement to shift from the business as usual linear material flows there, where we have assumed an unlimited resources, products, and unlimited waste. But we need to move towards what we call the type 3, the cyclical in nature, in such a way we have only a limited, where we assume that we have now a limited recoverable resource, and we only produce products, whether it's byproducts, co-products, main products, and so on. Because our intention here is really to convert the waste and emissions to value-adding products, preferably with those market prices that are higher. And I think we can perform now via data science, cyber infrastructure, or via advanced computing. We can do some simulation models, actually, and identify and quantify which of those potential products that would contribute to maybe to the sustainable livelihood of that particular region in the Philippines. And that is the intention of circular economy. So in a way, we would like to accelerate this model because it's restorative and regenerative by design and keeping products. So the key principles of circular economy is we want to design out. So particularly this is relevant for engineers, whether you are mechanical, chemical, or whatever field of engineering. It is important now that we engineers have to design products, processes, supply chain that actually minimize or even avoid waste and emissions. And if we cannot avoid them, we need to think on what possible products we can produce out of this waste or out of these emissions. And we want to mimic the natural systems or the biological system. And that is the intention of circular economy. But in the context of COVID-19, the pandemic actually has revealed many shortcomings in the linear economy. And this is also showed the urgency actually to shift to what we call a circular economy system. And also it requires social innovation approaches because it can reduce poverty actually. And this is being argued in many circular economy reports that via social innovation, we can reduce poverty while promoting human development and sustainable consumption patterns. And I think most of you are also familiar with Industry 4.0 is considered an enabler of the circular economy. So therefore, with this idea of circular economy and with your exposure to Industry 4.0, hopefully we can invest more in research and development, particularly for those products that would be more critical to improve the livelihood of the people in your region. And hopefully this could reduce poverty in your specific region. So knowing that context, knowing those challenges that we are facing, what are some of the system methods that we can use actually? I visited the Northwest Summer State University as a Balik scientist, and I have spoken with Lloyd actually, and we are exploring what are those industrial ecology methods and tools that could facilitate the circular economy. And the industrial ecology actually takes aside a whole system approach, life cycle systems thinking approach. It requires a transdisciplinary thinking. It cannot be just a single disciplinary approach. It requires integrating knowledge, ideas, methods, and tools from sustainability science, from climate research, from economics, even traditional knowledge, indigenous knowledge, wisdom, and practical skills should be taken into account. And some of the methods that we are using in the field of industrial ecology are life cycle assessment, materials flow analysis, which I'm going to briefly cover actually here. I'm showing you this method of environmental life cycle assessment. I think one of my collaborators there in Northwestern State University, Lloyd Celeste, actually, where we are working on this method of life cycle assessment and apply this to different potential bioproducts there in the Philippines, actually. And there are 4 major steps in LSA, or life cycle assessment, where we have to define the goal and scope definition of the study. And then we perform what we call inventory analysis, which is simply a data collection phase. Then we convert all of this data into environmental impact categories, maybe in terms of resource consumption, global warming, and then we interpret the result, because the result of the LSA report can be used for product development, can be used for strategic planning, as well as for public policy making. So it's a very important tool for anyone who would like to go deeper into circular economy or circular bioeconomy. And let's say, if we talk about let's say, this is just an example. No, I don't know what are specific crops you are growing there in summer and lately, but let's say we would like to conduct an environmental LSA of cocoa production and processing. And we know that there are different unit operation or steps in the supply chain, covering from cocoa farming to cocoa beans fermentation and so on, and produce different products. And there are emissions, there are waste at every stage of the supply chain. There are also resources being used at every stage of the supply chain. So via life cycle environmental assessment, we can analyze, we can quantify, we can identify what are those emissions, what are those ways, and what are those critical emissions contributing to environmental problems in any industry. So this is just some idea on how to perform an LSA, particularly in the case of the cocoa production, where we have to identify and quantify the potential impacts. And we have also covered the system boundary, and we define the functional unit to be 1 kilogram of cocoa beans. And these are the results that you would get from the LSA. You would get let's say, the global warming potential, the photochemical ozone depletion, and so on. So you will produce this kind of diagram actually, so that you will be able to identify what are those critical environmental impact categories. And via LCA, you can conduct what we call waste footprint, water footprint, or global or carbon footprint. So in a way, you would be able to account and quantify and identify what are those emissions and waste. And maybe via chemical analysis, we would be able to know what are those composition, what are those chemical or substances in those ways that could be a potential resource to another industry. And that can be done via what we call life cycle assessment or materials flow analysis. And you produce this kind of results. I won't go in, but these are some of the example. So having that, you have that methodology now on life cycle assessment or materials flow analysis actually to facilitate the implementation of circular economy principles. What we can do actually to create what we call a national or even regional or even at an LGO waste policy, because the intention of the circular economy is less waste or resources. So in circular economy, we follow this waste strategy foundation principles. So as much as possible, the most preferred one is we avoid waste. We avoid waste at every stage of the supply chain, whether we are talking about the cocoa production or the sugarcane or any other crops there or any other products that we are producing in the Philippines. As much as possible, we avoid waste and emissions. But if that could not be possible, then we reduce it. We reuse the waste as the last option in the circular economy, but as much as possible, the last preference is the landfilling. We have to redirect from landfilling to what we call making it as a resource to another industry. And that is really the challenge, not only for the engineers, but for the chemists, for the biologists actually, to identify potential product out of those waste. And that is the foundation of circular economy. So what are those strategies that we can implement actually? Let's say if we want to avoid waste, which is very important, particularly for engineers and scientists. Firstly, maybe our strategy would be to design systems and products to avoid waste. So we have to design our products, design our processes, our supply chain, our value chain in such a way we can minimize or even avoid waste. And if we are able to be fully develop our system, then we can share this knowledge and education to other regions in the Philippines. Principle 2, following that, improve resource recovery. We can develop and implement partnership. I think based on some of your video clips, there is a lot of focus on partnerships between the academy, the government, the business sector, to take ownership, particularly in developing this circular economy opportunities. We can improve access for regional, remote, and indigenous communities, which is, I think this is in the I think this is relevant in summer and late, and we have to also adopt a strategy on increasing industry capacity. So these are some of the strategies that we can implement in pursuit of circular economy. Moreover, if we are able to identify some of the recycled materials, we can encourage or maybe demand the government actually to buy products with recycled materials, locally made recycled materials, even business and individuals. Principle 4, we can actually, strategy 11, let's say, I think strategy 12 is more important, reduce organic waste or biomass waste. This is in line with circular bioeconomy. And principle 5, actually, for those of you who have expertise in data science, computing industry 4.0, it's important to improve our information to support innovation as well as to enable consumer decisions. And actually, it's very important nowadays actually to share data in such a way that as a whole, at a national level, we can enhance not only our local government units actually, but also the region as well as a national level, maybe in terms of its economic performance. So having understood these principles, these strategies for circular economy, then let's explore this. How can we apply this into the biomass waste context? So these are just examples. Let's say if you are actually collecting food waste, food processing waste, then some of the recoverable resources are maybe biogas, let's say, instead of just leaving those biomass waste in the landfill, maybe we can do some composting, or maybe we can harness the emission of methane gas and use that for biogas. Soil conditioner, like for fertilizers, for chemicals, pectin in particular, you can get that from citrus peel, or animal feed or fish food. If they're cooking oils and fats, biofuels, and even clothing waste, you can extract nutrients and polyester and cellulose. So there are a lot of possibilities. It's really important to conduct chemical analysis so that we can identify what are the potential products. So in Brisbane, or in the state of Queensland, we have this roadmap, this action plan actually, where we have these inputs. I'm sure the Philippines have also a sugar industry. So there are bagasse and truss in the sugarcane industry, and via conversion technologies, we can produce biofuels, bioplastics, and biochemicals. And I think the local community, the people, they can participate actually. Maybe it's just in collecting those biomass waste and converting them into potential bio products. And there are a lot of, maybe if there are sawmill residues there in summer, and later if there is a native forestry field and sawmill residues, then maybe we can start thinking on how we can convert this into value adding products, because that is in line with this push for circular economy globally actually. And I would like that Philippines also would invest a lot of innovation capacity to develop its potential in circular bioeconomy, because there are a lot of opportunities awaiting not only the developed countries, but as well as the developing world. So there are approaches on biomass cascading. You can cascade it in time, where you can explore the sequential use of the biomass. Let's say a wood you can produce a furniture, and then furniture can be reused somewhere else, and eventually you can use that as a fuel to produce burn something. And then you can have also a cascading in value, where, like, for instance, you use bio-based products and industrial materials, and then later on you will use that for bioenergy. And then there is also what we call cascading in function actually, where you create different functional streams from one initial biomass. So there is only one biomass, but you can produce different products actually, or co-products. And these are some ways in converting your biomass waste. So there are a lot of possibilities, and hopefully this idea could be implemented rather in this region and other regions in the Philippines actually, to explore economic opportunities to assist the region, as well as to assist the people, the local community, particularly the poor people in that region. Already conversion technologies, if you're thinking about alternative energy, I think I've seen in the video clip, there are some projects in alternative renewable energy. You can convert now in agricultural waste, whether you can pursue what we call drying, pressing, granulation, or torrefaction, gasification, and you can produce green fuel pellets, biochar, biogas, and this has already been successfully implemented in Denmark and Taiwan. The municipal solid waste, type 4, you can do co-combustion, co-digestion, fermentation, and you can already produce biogas, heat, and refuse-derived fuel, and that has been implemented successfully in USA and Taiwan. So there are already these technologies. It's up to us, whether you are in developed or developing countries, to tap these technologies and convert our biomass waste actually to higher value adding products that could be used locally, regionally, and nationally. And if they are produced in large quantities, maybe we can export them and a potential livelihood for the local community. Another example that I would like to explore is that this is just an idea. This is a project that I've been pushing here at the University of Queensland, where the situation of the agri-food system is really challenging, right? So there are a lot of resources being used, but at the same time, it produces around 30 to 50% of the food produced are totally wasted. And there are 2 billion people suffer from micronutrient deficiencies, right? So this is really a challenging situation where you try to balance actually in developing the agri-food system to minimize its resource consumption as well as environmental emissions, and as much as possible actually reduce, the impact, in terms of its in nutrient requirements. So in the case of Australia, this is the situation, right? In the case of Australia, the agri-food system or the supply chain has 20 billion is lost to the economy through food waste. And at a household level, it is around $2,200 to $3,800 are wasted. And if you can see, at every stage of the supply chain, from the agriculture, post-harvest, processing, distribution, food services, and household, there are a lot of waste. There are a lot, whether it's biomass waste or food waste. But just look on the agriculture. In the case of in the case of Australia, it's about 1.1 to 2 billion are lost. And we can do similar study in the context of the Philippines, and maybe we can also maybe around that number, but only in pesos. So we can actually estimate the economic potential if we could convert this waste from the agri-food sector actually in the Philippines, which can be the basis for a sustainable livelihood in that region. So what is circular bioeconomy then? From circular bioeconomy we talk about, and then now we talk about circular bioeconomy. So let me show a very short video clip on what is circular bioeconomy so that you would get the idea easily. Let me go this. Let me try whether. So as you can see in that video clip, there are a lot of possibilities actually in the area of circular bioeconomy. We just have to really understand what are the different biomass waste we have in summer and later in region 8, actually in other regions in the Philippines, and then identify, quantify them, and biochemical analysis, we would be able to know what are the chemical components of these different biomass waste and then think maybe via through the DOST or via the DTI, the Department of Trade and Industry, and with the entrepreneurial spirit of the Filipinos actually, then we can think of possible ways to produce value-adding products actually, which is very important to sustain the livelihood, whether you are a woman or whether you are a poor person actually. So in a way, you can contribute to this effort actually, in whatever means actually. And that is the intention of circular bioeconomy. And hopefully you have that idea that you can actually share it. Again, there are different opportunities, but there are also challenges actually. And for you who are background in environmental science and management, there is opportunity. The biodiversity-rich ecosystem can be a new resource for sustainable bioproducts. This could ensure efficient use of biomass resources, but the challenges is that there could be trade-offs and there could be a shift from large-scale agriculture to sustainable food systems. So we have those challenges also that we need to manage if we're going to pursue what we call circular bioeconomy. So as you can see in this diagram, there are a lot of possibilities. You can produce biofuels, biochemicals, bionutrients, and bioenergy, biofuels. So there are a lot of this because there are already existing conversion technologies to make this possible. It's just a question whether we are ready to make use of these conversion technologies and produce these value-adding products that we can sell in the local market, even in the regional market. And hopefully you have gotten the idea now that this is a potential strategy in such a way that we can improve the livelihood in Region 8, the communities in the Region 8. So again, there are a lot of, even here in Australia, we have this vision for food security, for the agri-food security, and we can also establish similar one in the Philippines or any other developing countries if those people who are in this Zoom. And there is what we call really to focus on bioregionalism actually, to source our resources, our inputs locally from renewable resources, alternative energy, and as much as possible, we have to minimize our waste outputs. We should encourage short-term and more transparent chains. I won't go into much detail on that. And we have to look on valorizing the waste, to finding value of our waste streams actually, because there are nutrients and chemicals and biogas, which offer a large economic potential opportunities in the region, as well as other regions in the Philippines. And there are other, maybe some of you are knowledgeable also of aquaponics, aeroponics actually, which also can contribute to advancing circular bioeconomy. So this is the latest report from the United Kingdom actually. This is a report from Palahi, which he is actually, I don't know, he is actually a technocrat in Finland, but this is a work from a policy think tank in the United Kingdom, the Chatham House actually in the United, and they have established this action plan to advance circular bioeconomy. And we can develop similar one in the context of the Philippines, or maybe specific to the Region 8 or even in the local community. And there are 10 action plans that they want to implement. And I think we can get idea actually. Yeah. And in particular with relevance to this conference, I think point 3, generate an equitable distribution of prosperity is relevant. And 4th is to rethink the land, food, and health systems. And we can even transform industrial sectors. We can reimagine the cities of Katbalogan. We can invest in nature. And I think some of you are already doing this. But I think I would like to zoom in to point 3 and 4, because this is more relevant to sustainable livelihood and poverty reduction or poverty alleviation. And this is again, they have pointed out that the circular bioeconomy could be co-developed with the participation of the local communities, with the local government units, maybe within the region, with the business sector and so on, because it has a great potential to generate what we call an equitable distribution of prosperity across a wider geography. And this is what I would like to put forward actually in this region and any other regions in the Philippines, that we push this idea of circular economy, because Philippines has a lot of biomass, and some of these are just wasted and being on the ground. And I think it's about time that we have to think, and I think especially in the training of the next generation of scientists, engineers, economists, and so on, we need to help them to become entrepreneurial in spirit, become intermediaries, but as well as they should think in a life cycle thinking perspective, in a circular perspective, in such a way that they're always looking for value at every stage of the supply chain, whether there are waste or whether there are non-waste. We need to rethink so that we can contribute to the livelihood of the local community. And maybe we can also rethink the land, food, and health system and address that holistically, and which is very important. What are then our roles? We cannot just leave the government actually, or we just leave the national government. And if we would like to advance this notion of circular bioeconomy, all of us, all the constituents in Region 8 and other regions, we need to improve our recycling habits, or maybe we should start collecting some of this biomass waste, and maybe in collaboration, in partnership with the LGUs, with the national government, with the academe, and with the research sector, actually, in that region, we can actually sort waste and so on. We can avoid purchasing products which are excessive or unnecessary packaging. We can purchase products that we can use multiple times. So it's not only in the circular bioeconomy context, but it's also for circular economy context. How about the business? How we can encourage business and industries actually, because they are actually, they are very critical component actually, so that we can improve the livelihood in a particular community in that region. So maybe we could encourage them to become more innovative, particularly in designing bioproducts and make use of the waste. We can invest in new bioprocesses, bioproducts, business systems and technologies for the purpose of managing our waste. And we can actually develop a new manufacturing system in line with Industry 4.0 that use recycled materials, avoid waste, and improve financial sustainability, which that is the important role of the business and the industries, because they are the one that will provide jobs to the local communities. How about the government, whether it's a national government or the local government? Maybe the LGUs would help in facilitating household waste collection, or maybe facilitate the biomass waste collection in terms of circular bioeconomy. Maybe we should try to operate our landfill sites, try to really, as much as possible, minimize the amount of waste going to the landfill, and make use of this waste and we use it somewhere else, and make use of maybe a potential resource to other industry. At the national level, we could encourage the transition. We should support the transition for circular economy or bioeconomy. I think that's very important. We can grow the recycling and the reprocessing industry. We can encourage that too also in the region. And so on. So there are a lot of things. Everyone has something to contribute to advance the circular bioeconomy in Samar and in Region 8, or any other regions in the Philippines. So it's very important that we need to develop the industries that could really make use of the biomass waste that there are a lot of this there in the Philippines. In a nutshell, to conclude this talk, actually, this is in a way I would like to share with you that we have to advance the circular bioeconomy systems in many regions in the Philippines for sustainable system. And again, it's really following a life cycle perspective from the cradle to the grave, actually, and we look on to the every stage of the supply chain, whether it's from raw material extraction, bioprocessing, transportation, use, and we identify and quantify the resource consumptions as well as the emissions to air, water, to land. And hopefully those waste could be considered as a new valued resources to create new products. And if we create new products, we create new markets, new business, and we create jobs. And hopefully that would employ maybe a lot of people actually in the local community. Again, this is in line with the UN SDG goals, in line with addressing our food security, while knowing that there is an increasing population and we would like to enhance the economic system, whether at the national or personal level. And we have to be aware also that we are operating within the environmental of Mother Earth carrying capacity, which call planetary boundaries. So that is, in a nutshell, what I have delivered to you, actually, the talk that I would like to put forward. So this is me. I'm currently the head of this industrial ecology research group here at the University of Queensland. I'm teaching these courses in sustainable consumption, production, industrial ecology, and so on. So I'm doing a lot of research in circular economy and circular bioeconomy here in Queensland. And hopefully this talk, this keynote will have given you ideas, potential ideas that could, in a way, alleviate the poverty, actually, particularly that we are in this post-COVID-19. It's about time to transition from this what we call linear economic paradigm to what we call circular economy or circular bioeconomic paradigm, because there are a lot of opportunity there that we need to tap into. And we can actually start from the biomass or the biomass waste, and we can do via data analysis, computer modeling, and simulation, and tapping the different expertise in that region actually, while working collaboratively with the local government, even at the regional level. Hopefully we can tap, and hopefully we can develop what they call the circular bioeconomy system in the Philippines. And I think that's it for me. And hopefully you have learned and gained a lot of ideas that you can possibly implement in your region. And hopefully this could be replicated in other regions in the Philippines. And for that, maraming salamat.
Okay, thank you so much for that very comprehensive discussion on rethinking biomass waste for circular bioeconomy as a strategy for sustainable livelihood and poverty alleviation. Thank you so much, Dr. Anthony Hallag of the School of Earth and Environmental Sciences of the University of Queensland in Australia. At this point, may I have the honor to present to you a certificate of appreciation as a gratitude to your scholarly insights and expertise shared with us this morning. Okay, so let me read the citation of the certificate. It reads, Samar State University, in partnership with Northwest Samar State University and partner collaborators, awards the Certificate of Recognition to Dr. Anthony Hallag in grateful recognition of his invaluable insights and expertise rendered as keynote speaker during the second International Conference on Poverty Alleviation and Sustainable Development held on October 21 to 23, 2020. Given this 23rd day of October 2020, signed Dr. Marilyn D. Cardoso, the chair of the International Conference, iPOVCON 2020, and Dr. Benjamin L. Picayo, the co-chair of this conference. Thank you so much, sir,
Thank you
for
too.
your
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
insights. Okay, so perhaps a word from our president, Dr. Cardoso, madam.
Yes, thank you, Janelle. Dr. Anthony Halog, behalf of Samar State University, on behalf of our co-host, Northwest Samar State University, our partner SUCs and HEIs in Eastern Visayas, as well as the participants of the iPOVCON 2020, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to you for your generosity in sharing your precious time and expertise all the way from Queensland University, Australia. Indeed, your keynote talk titled Rethinking Biomass Waste for Circular Bioeconomy as a Strategy for Sustainable Livelihood and Poverty Alleviation is very relevant. I do hope that our participants will come up with innovations and strategies as a response to your challenge of finding value at every stage of the supply chain, the challenge of responsible consumption and responsible production, the challenge to shift our current paradigm and mindset, the need to shift from linear economy to circular economy, and many others. Indeed, we have learned very valuable information from your discussion. Once again, maraming salamat. Thank you very much, Dr. Halog.
Maraming salamat din. It's my pleasure.
Okay, so thank you so much, Madam President. So again, we would like to reiterate our gratitude to Dr. Anthony Halog for that very comprehensive and insightful address. Damo nga salamat. Thank you so much. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you.
Okay, so at this point, ladies and gentlemen, we will have a plenary session with our resource speakers who will speak on their different experiences on the respective local government units or agencies, and to introduce to us our resource persons. May I yield the screen to the session moderator, the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences of Summer State University. We have Dr. Florabel B. Patosa.
Poverty alleviation occurs when the power of Christ's resurrection reconciles our key relationships through the transformation of both individual lives and local, national, and international systems. A quotation I would like to share from Brian Fickert, recognizing that in our battle against poverty, Christ is always our rock and fortress. And with the strong and genuine collaboration with you, dear partners, we can do it together. Lalaban tayo. Susulong tayo. Maupay nga aga, Summer State University, Philippines, and the entire world. Warmest greetings to our university president, who is a great visionary leader, Dr. Marilyn D. Cardozo, and to all the equally brilliant presidents of the collaborator HEIs, CHED, HEIs, and LGU officials, to our dear resource speakers, and to everyone. We are now set for our plenary session on this third day of a very relevant activity, the second International Conference on Poverty Alleviation and Sustainable Development. As we live and rise above the crisis together, no one's left behind, walang iwanan. One of the aims of this activity is to have a session with community and agency leaders and talk about their best practices in poverty reduction and spark meaningful discourses that will capture human resiliency and management capabilities before, during, and after a crisis. Today, we are honored and privileged to have distinguished personalities who will inspire us in moving forward despite poverty and challenges. Our first resource speaker is Ms. Reclinus de la Serna, who has a vast experience in management and community organization. She is an excellent student and a graduate of degree Bachelor of Science in Accountancy, University of San Carlos, Philippines. Currently, Ms. De La Serna is the Deputy Manager of Visayas Deputy Head Operations of the National Anti-Poverty Commission. Previously, she has served as Regional Project Officer of the Department of Interior and Local Government and Manager of various construction industries. She has been serving as legal researcher at the Estandarte Law Office for 14 years. She has served notable number of years as an active youth leader and board of director of Filipino dapat palambuon. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all give a virtual applause to Ms. Reclines de la Serna.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning po. Yes, I would like to thank the organizer of 2020 iPOVCON and for inviting us here in this plenary session together with other LGUs, no, LCEs from Iloilo and Cebu City. Good morning, and I will be sharing. Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Hi, okay. Sige. Today, I will be sharing poverty and inequality in the Philippines amidst the COVID-19 crisis. This will focus on the mandate of National Anti-Poverty Commission, as well as the ways forward of the Philippine government after this, if in moving forward for this crisis. So, as you can see here, there is actually this is a sixth lecture sharing outline. First is the context of PDP or Ambition Natin 2040, which is based on the World Bank situationary. And the second is the poverty and subsistence incidence definition and statistics. And also, I will be presenting a video presentation about NAPSI's mandate and its 5-year development plan under the leadership of Attorney Noel K. Filongo. And next is the poverty incidence of our basic sectors, and also NAPSI's main strategies to combat poverty, which is its 5-year development plan, which is called the Sambayanihan Serbisyong Sambayanan, or in short, the 3S program of NAPSI, and an update on the Republic Act 11291, the Magna Carta of the Poor, which was approved last year to combat poverty in our country. To start with, during the administration of President Duterte, it aims to reduce poverty incidence now in our country from 21.6% in 2015 and lower it to 14% now by 2022. That is our main target. And hopefully we will hit that in spite of the crisis that we are experiencing right now. And this is equivalent to 6 million Filipinos to be out of poverty, for our aim and goal for the Ambition Natin 2040. In the World Bank situationary in April 20, before the COVID-19 pandemic, the Philippines is one of the most dynamic economies in the East Asia Pacific region. So we are we are being recognized. No? Sound economic fundamentals are globally recognized, and we have competitive workforce to reinforce this growth of our momentum in our economy. Real economic growth slowed in 2019 but was still strong with 6% year on year. Nevertheless, economic growth is expected to rebound gradually in 2021 to 2022 as global conditions improve and with more robust domestic activity bolstered by the public investment momentum and a boost from 2022 election-related spending. In recent years, the Philippine economy has made progress in delivering inclusive growth, evidenced by a decline in poverty rates in its Gini coefficient. Poverty declined from 23.3% in 2015 to 16.6% in 2018, while the Gini coefficient declined from 44.9% to 42.7% in the same period. Poverty incidence in the Philippines, as you can see here in our data, based on PSA, in 2015, we have a poverty incidence among population of 23.3%. By the end of 2018, our poverty incidence is only 16.6%. So, medyo malaki yung improvement natin in terms of our poverty alleviation measures. And of course, output to hindi lamang dun sa government efforts, but also from the private sector also. And we have a poverty incidence among families 17.9% in 2015 at nagbabato nung 2018 to 12.1%. No? So medyo maganda yung lakad supposed to be natin before the pandemic hit the country, not just the country, but of course to the world. No? So subsistence incidence in the Philippines, in 2015, 9.14%. Tapos nagbaba siya ng 5.24% noong 2018, at the end of 2018. So, defining the poor in our country, as defined by NEDA, individuals and families whose income fall below the poverty threshold and or cannot afford in a sustained manner to provide their own minimum basic needs of health, education, housing, and other essential amenities of life. Taken ito dun sa ang mandato sa RA 8425 ng National Anti-Poverty Commission. Poverty threshold is defined as a minimum income required for a family or an individual to meet the basic food requirements, also known as the poverty line. In 2018, our threshold is 10,727 or more to meet the basic needs and non-food requirements. Pero itong 10,727 actually may mga may mga parang disagreeing factor pa in several dialogues with both the government and the private sector. And then poverty incidence, the proportion of individuals or families with per capita income less than the per capita poverty threshold to the total number of families or individuals. As you can see here in the data, noong 2015, we have 23.3%. Tapos nagbaba ito noong 2018, medyo malaki-laki yung binaba niya, which is 16.6%. Unfortunately, ngayong 2020, based on several research and data collection of several surveys and from different agencies, parang tumaas tayo due to this pandemic. But still, as mentioned earlier, hindi tayo, nagpo-focus pa rin tayo dun sa target natin na 14% poverty incidence or lower by 2022. But of course, kailangan itong pagtulungan, no, ng lahat. Not just the government, but will also include the different sectors, no, the private sectors, and kailangan din talaga ito na pagtulungan even the communities, no, kasi kung hindi tayo kung yung communities itself will not be active, no, in to have a sustainable livelihood program for them, then even the government will fail its purpose. The subsistence incidence or the food poverty, the food threshold is defined as minimum income required for a family or individual to meet the basic food needs, which satisfy the nutritional requirements for economically necessary and socially desirable physical activities. In 2018, a Filipino family with 5 members needed a monthly income of 7,528 or more to meet their basic food needs. Also in 2018, it is estimated that 6 in 100 Filipino are food poor, no? So medyo ano pa rin tayo dun sa extremely poor natin. Subsistence incidence is the proportion of individuals or families with per capita income less than per capita food threshold to the total number of families or individuals. Given this data, may big role talaga si NAPSI in achieving this goal, no, to alleviate poverty. NAPSI was created by virtue of Public Act number 8425 or Social Reform and Poverty Alleviation Act of 1997. NAPSI also is the coordinating body and advisory body for the implementation of the social reform and poverty alleviation agenda in our country. NAPSI is the secretariat of the 24 national government agencies in our country, the government. NAPSI envisions a Philippine society free from poverty and inequality. We believe that fighting poverty does not only require the efforts of the government, but also the significant contribution of every stakeholder. So lahat tayo dapat may contribution para ma-alleviate tayo from poverty. I will be presenting this video kung ano yung the strategies of NAPSI with Secretary Noel Colombo's administration.
Hello ma'am, excuse me. Wala po kaming naririnig na audio po. Hello ma'am, excuse me po. Wala po kaming naririnig na audio po.
Good morning po, ma'am. Ma'am, we can't hear po the audio po. Ma'am De La Serna. Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Opo, ma'am, we couldn't hear po the audio po sa presentation.
Okay. Ma'am, would it be possible if it will be presented on your end? Baka kasi kailangan yung host mismo yung mag-present dun sa video.
Hello ma'am. We don't have yet the file po. You can click po the screen share ulit. And then please i-click mo po ma'am yung screen share ulit. Tapos please check po sa bottom left share computer audio.
Actually, naka-ano na siya.
Naka-check na po ma'am yung share with computer audio.
Wait lang. Teka lang. Saan nga yung titingin?
Click mo po ulit ma'am yung share screen po. Pwede i-stop screen share mo po muna siguro ma'am. I-stop po muna yung screen share.
Sige, stop muna.
Tapos
Okay.
po, click mo po ulit yung share screen ma'am and
Share
then
screen.
i-check mo po yung Tapos meron dyan sa pop-out, share computer audio dun sa share computer sound po.
Dun sa mismo nga lang. Share. Okay. I got it.
Yan po. Opo.
Okay. Sige. Okay. So, ibabalik ko na lang dito. Sayang. Yes.
Opo. And then ma'am, pa full screen na rin po.
Okay. Sige.
Thank you so much po.
Naka-full screen na ba?
Yes po ma'am. Opo.
Okay na ba?
Alright. Wala pa din pong sound, ma'am.
Yes.
Wala pa din pong sound po.
Naka-share na siya.
Ulitin po natin, ma'am, yung pag-screen share mo po.
Sige po.
Okay. Bali, ma'am, i-click mo po yung screen share ulit. Tsaka sa pop-out window na lalabas, meron pong share computer sound sa bottom left. I-check mo
Yes.
po iyan.
Actually, na-share ko na yung share computer sound.
Okay po. Pero wala pa rin po kaming naririnig on our end.
Sige, try natin ito ulit. If not, I'll be sending. Kasi nakasama po sa presentation talaga.
Okay po, ma'am. Ma'am, we just can proceed na lang po. Anyway, it's visible.
Yes, okay.
Opo, thank you po.
Thank you.
Hello. Hi. Morning, John. Ang atong MRB dinay kay kuan kini dili ko sila ang sila mga ko sila ka dismiss kaso katong si kapitan pa ng tao si Romeo Wen no si bilang si police captain Jonathan Guevara kuan kini magrelita og kuan magrelita og atong monitoron nga magrelita og pensa o magrelita sa pensa pwede daw kuan mo atong sa Monday ba magkita tayo sa kuan sa fiscal office atong upon criminal division sa Monday magpunta kayo ka ha. Kasabot mo ko sa kuwan kay fiscal world, dili mo gula kung bilin siya 1 to 10 sa court, convicto ang 10. Ang fiscal 1 lang, nalang balik pa. Pero nga muna siya, ang atong defense kung ma-dismiss kung wala, bitali siya ko. I'm not in the Philippines.
So that's the so actually what was in the video may I request the technical to may I request the technical
Yes po, ma'am.
to stop the sharing muna?
Yes po. Yan po. Naka-stop na po, ma'am.
So as you can see, what was shown in the video is NAPSI is supposed to be the NAPSI's mandate in the 5-year development plan of NAPSI and the ways forward of NAPSI amidst this pandemic now. So amidst this situation, the government is very busy, to put the country back on track. The National Anti-Poverty Commission is mandated to play a big role in all these efforts. As a government agency established by RA 8425, which is known as the Social Reform and Poverty Alleviation Act of 1998, NAPSI is tasked to coordinate poverty reduction programs by the national and local government and to ensure that the marginalized sector participates in government decision-making process. As you can see in that video, there's a participation Yes, hello. Wala. Okay, sige. Okay, thank you. So NAPSI is working with the 14 basic sectors, which are the farmers, the artisanal fisher folks, the IPs, urban poor, the formal labor. We have the informal sectors, the children, the youth sector, the senior citizens, persons with disabilities, the cooperatives, non-government organizations, and the victims of disasters and calamities. No? So hindi ko na ito isa-isahin. These are just the data kung ano ang pinakamalaking may poverty incidents, no, per sector. No? So ang pinakamalaki natin is the farmers and then followed by the fisher folks. Then in the next slides given, these are the poverty incidence of basic sectors by region. And with this data, it was given that medyo may malaki tayong talagang poverty incidence in all regions of Mindanao, no? With our fisher folks, the children's sector, the informal worker sector, the women's sector, and the PWDs, no, and the urban poor sector. So in addressing this, no, as far as NAPSI is concerned, the agency's three main strategies to combat poverty and inequality before this pandemic becomes very relevant and crucial in this crisis. No, these strategies are for social protection, food security, community-based livelihoods. No, so yung mga livelihood programs natin naka-anchor siya dun sa kung ano yung pwede ding maibigay ng community, no, para may commitment sila on our mga alleviation programs, no. And the 3S, which is the sambayanihan, serbisyong sambayanan, is naka-anchor siya na yung programa ay dapat siyang climate responsive, gender and culture sensitive, and convergent and participatory. So lahat dapat may pakialam dun sa ating gustong maabot na iangat natin ang ating mga kababayang mahihirap from poverty. No? So the core components of the sambayanihan is premised on developing rural and urban agricultural and industry as the most important preconditions for overcoming poverty. Sambayanihan comprises the following core components, no? Providing informal settlers and families, in the urban poor basic services and access to climate responsive dwellings, livelihood, and employment. Then developing innovative infrastructure and financing mechanisms for the rural poor, strengthening urban agroeconomic value chains, enhancing food securities, securing the health and general well-being of our poor communities. And we have also a special program for Mindanao, no? Development programs for Mindanao. So with this pandemic, there are some issues, no, on social protection that yung naibigay ng government. No? One scenario in the PID simulation where subsistence incidence may actually be reduced is assuming low income contraction of 5% and effective targeting of the social amelioration program, which is the SAP, and also the small business wage support. No, ito yung pag ano ng government, no. Ito yung ito yung to address, no, yung low income, no. Ito yung ginawa ng government. In this scenario, subsistence incidence could fall from 5.3% to 4.4%, no? Translating to around 900 Filipinos lifted from poverty dahil sa pagbibigay ng SAP at SBWS. While we have yet to know precisely how incomes are affected, we have also to control the second factor, effective targeting of social protection measures. Now, while DSWD has reported to have issued the emergency subsidy to nearly 18 million households, there remains some 5 million still low-income families who are left out in the first tranche in the distribution of SAP. This means that either the initial estimate of 18 million low-income households fell short, or the emergency subsidy did not reach all of the total target of 18 million households. No? With this discourse, we might be understating poverty in our country, given the official methodology that we use to measure poverty in our country. No? So, yung DSWD natin ay by operationalization of low-income household. No? Ang una, yung ating mga 4-piece beneficiaries, Second, yung mga informal economic workers natin with 14 subcategories. No? And third is the household members belonging to any of the vulnerable sectors like senior citizens, PWDs, pregnant and lactating women, and parents, and OFWs in distress, IPs na indigent, the underprivileged, and yung mga natin na mga individuals na talagang hindi nabigyan ng marapatang ayuda, no? And other members of the vulnerable sectors who are undergoing any clinical or hospital procedures, recovering from major health surgeries, and mga transplant, no? It is likely that DSWD, based on the categorization of the regular clientele of individuals who routinely seek their assistance, indicating how our official designation of poor fails to capture the scope of the vulnerable persons in the country. Now, on the other hand, much anecdotal evidence exists how the emergency subsidy may not have reached many of the targeted low-income households for a variety of reasons. No? So SYNAPSI will conduct a post-distribution monitoring survey on the effectiveness and appropriateness and immediate outcomes of this cash, food, and non-food assistance provided by the government, this pandemic. Not just the one provided by the national government, but also includes the ones provided by our local government units. This survey is expected to yield policy and programs recommendations in order to improve the delivery of social protection measures amidst the COVID-19 crisis during this pandemic. So during this pandemic, the COVID-19 crisis has particularly highlighted the need to ensure food security in the country, as a weak agricultural productivity and the disruption of food supply chain caused by the measures to mitigate the spread of the virus have compromised the poor access to safe and affordable and nutritious food. 3/4 of the Filipino poor reside in rural areas now, and among the basic sectors, poverty incidence is the highest among the farmers. The factors linking the agricultural sector to poverty have long been known to be low productivity of the sector amidst the high supply of labor. May marami tayong farmers pero yung productivity natin is very low. The COVID-19 crisis has further weakened agricultural production. In a survey conducted by the government, 14% reported that the agricultural activities were disrupted during the ECQ, while only 65% were able to sell their produce. No? Tapos may mga harang-harang pa dun sa mga security checkpoints, no, natin. So medyo naanuhan talaga yung food security natin. With NAPSI's Sambayanihan, may tayo dito, food security. A core component of Sambayanihan is to have this innovative infrastructure and financing mechanism for the rural poor in order to increase agricultural productivity and strengthen linkages between the agricultural sector and labor-intensive individuals. And this requires, among others, fast-tracking distribution of land and other necessary assessment of poor households and organizations, no? Lalo na yung mga small scale businesses. Then developing an expansion of a climate responsive infrastructure, including irrigation systems, shared services like farm to market roads, now not to mention all. And also provisions to production support, including financing, insurance, and extension services. Sambayanihan calls also for these strategies the framework of food sovereignty, with the right to safe, nutritious, and culturally approve food, no? And the collective right of community produce their own food and recognize. Then the Sambayanihan also supports the local agriculture, no, for production safety and prioritizing local food requirements. It also upholds traditional and indigenous knowledge and practices on sustainable food production, complemented by scientific knowledge and modern technology to combat the climate change. No? And we also, the Sambayanihan, Serbisyong Sambayanan, also supports organic farming. And we also have this community-based livelihood. So, kailangan may inputs yung community for a sustainable livelihood in their organizations. Then we have also introduced the Sambayanihan Corporation, which is a form of community social enterprise, no, which comprise the best practices of cooperatives and corporations in enterprise development and management. We promote this cooperative form for organizing, no, the rural poor, since cooperatives embody the spirit of aid more than most forms of organization. Beyond consolidating production and raising productivity, cooperativism allows them to share production decision-making power. So kailangan consultative siya yung magiging mga livelihood programs natin. And with the access to adequate credit and opportunities and corporations may eventually content existing exploitative relations with big agri-business corporations, no, and give voice to those small business enterprise natin. The principles of cooperation is it is community controlled, community owned, it is community benefit structure. Kasi may mga it is a short and long-term benefits for the communities in the form of wage, provision of daily needs, socio-economic protection, and delivery of public goods. And another one is community saving mobilization. So capital is pooled as the primary available fund that can be used as seed money by the enterprise. Now, and another isa ding ano natin sa Sambayanihan is what we call the Village Eco-Governance Development Framework, which yung perspective nito is on the principle of ecological protection and climate justice, no? Focusing on the role of activism in the barangay level and support an integrated ecosystem management or ridge-to-reef approach that provides holistic and collaborative and sustainable management resources. And by way of conclusion, ang ways forward ng government in this pandemic is also the approving the RA 11291, which is the Magna Carta of the Poor, which was signed by President Duterte last April. And through this promulgation, the implementing rules are still to be signed by the president. Medyo nahuli lang to because the pandemic, because of the pandemic, and we already have secured the concurrence of the 32 national agencies and bodies for this Magna Carta. It is a very important law because it seeks to uphold the right of the Filipino people, following the right to adequate food, the right to decent work, the right to relevant and quality education, the right to adequate housing, the right to the highest attainable standard of health. No? And that's all of my discussion, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for that very wonderful presentation. And thank you also for opening our eyes of the current situation of the Philippines. We thank you also for the presentation that you gave. That presentation gave us really a good picture of the efforts the government is doing to combat this poverty. Again, thank you so much to the Deputy Manager of the Visayas Deputy Head Operation, ma'am. Because of the challenge in the sharing of the video, we will be presenting the video, ma'am, in our iPOVCON website, because that would greatly help the people to really appreciate the government is doing, and we salute to that. Thank you so much. And we would like to ask po ma'am to please stay for a while, because we will have a question and answer right after the presentation or the talk of the second presenter. Thank you so much once again, ma'am, and see you later. Okay, so this moment in time, we have from Iloilo, who will be presenting to us information about battling the COVID. Honorable Jerry P. Trenyas is a long and valuable track in public service and civic involvements. Most notably, Mayor Trenyas served the Iloilo City, Philippines as the city mayor for 3 terms from 2001 to 2010. To add to that, he also served as the representative of the 15th, 16th, and 17th Congress for 9 consecutive years. He was given various awards by many renowned institutions, and the most notable include Mayor Trenyas as the Leadership Awardee from the League City of the Philippines in 2018. Champion for the landmark reproductive health law given by the Human Development Legislator of the 15th Congress, named Ambassador of Peace by the Universal Peace Federation at the UPF International Leadership Conference during the 2007 Global Peace Festival in 2007. Hall of Fame Champion Award for Iloilo City for being a consistent winner for the past 3 consecutive years as the cleanest and greenest highly urbanized city in Region 6 for 2005 to 2007, given by the DILG in 2007, and many more. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome and give a virtual clap Mayor Trenyas of Iloilo City.
The whole world has been facing a very alarming situation for 8 months now. The COVID-19 pandemic continues to pose threat to public health and has created a multifaceted impact in the lives of the people and in the economy. Many were pushed to poverty and food insecurity, and the decline in trade and tourism is very evident. Here in the Philippines, being a third world country, most local government units are having difficulties in raising revenues to address COVID-19 pandemic. Our city was not spared from the adverse effects of COVID-19 crisis. Many businesses have closed down and stopped operating, leaving many Ilonggos jobless. Being confronted with the challenges of the pandemic, we remain steadfast and committed to strengthening our initiative in trying to at least lessen the rapid spread of the virus and ensure everyone's safety. Because of the restrictions, many have lost their jobs, so we decided to provide food for Ilonggo families. On March 21, a few days after the whole city was placed under enhanced community quarantine, we started the Uswag community kitchens that have been serving thousands of Ilonggo families. We have activated 240 community kitchens where food and ingredients used partly came from donations from the private sector and the ordinary citizens. Last April, we launched the Ilonggo Pandesal, an initiative that gathered 19 bake shops and corporations to come up with a daily supply of pandesal for the Ilonggos. Despite being competitors in business, bake shop owners rallied for a common goal Another initiative dubbed as the Uswag Kitchen Patrol operated from March to September and has provided meals for our frontliners. Iloilo City also hired an additional 7 medical doctors, 49 nurses, and medtechs to help in the fight against COVID-19. Uswag Dorm, a facility that housed medical frontliners during the ACQ, accepted frontliners for free. RT-PCR tests in Iloilo City are given for free, and we have already tested a total of 38,000 Ilonggos, comprising 8% of the total population of the city. We plan to test more Ilonggos and to make the testing more efficient. We have put up a COVID laboratory which will start operating by November. Public elementary schools were converted to quarantine facilities for asymptomatic patients, returning OFWs and LSIs. We also provide the meals and basic necessities of individuals in the quarantine facilities. Despite the growing number of COVID-19 cases in our city, we have reopened business establishments with the goal of reviving our local economy. We are constantly working with the private sector in creating linkages for businesses and ways to adapt and thrive in the current business conditions, and programs that will help business owners come up with continuity plans to be able to survive the setup which we all call the new normal. To ensure that minimum health standards and preventive measures are strictly observed, we came up with a COVID compliance team to check on the obedience of business establishments, PUV operators, customers, and commuters. Barangay officials also work with the compliance team for stauncher responses. Other initiatives include Uswag Relief Operations, Ilonggo Artists Against COVID-19, Uswag Seamstresses and Tailors, Uswag Bike Sharing, Iloilo PPE Production, Uswag Rolling Store, cash assistance to vendors, and the LGBTQ community. All these initiatives were made possible by the strong public-private partnership here in Iloilo City. As the local chief executive, I don't feel the need to ask help from Ilonggo businessmen, but rather they are compassionate enough to initiate many kinds of support for Iloilo City government and the Ilonggo community. Despite having active cases, I believe that we are still on top of the situation because things are under control, and we could not have made it this far without the overwhelming help from the private sector. The new normal has taught us to live and rise above the crisis, and we are doing our best for our local economy to recover. We will work on our local tourism to help the hospitality industry, since the effects of this pandemic is perceived to be felt even a few years from now. By strengthening our local tourism, we can encourage people to provide jobs for those in the industry. No matter how long it takes for Iloilo City's economy to recover, the business and investment landscape will look different. The pandemic opened the realization that businesses in Iloilo City need to enhance its capacities on assessing vulnerabilities and risks. This includes business continuity management and linkage to forward and backward industries. Technology and digital platforms will be an indispensable tool to connect suppliers, customers, and financiers. Buoying up consumer confidence entails strong partnership of government, businesses, and communities. As a leader, I have always wanted to deliver a message of hope, and plant seeds of inspiration and love. This pandemic may have depleted our resources, destroyed our morale, shattered our dreams, and delayed our plans, but let us never be discouraged. Let us not waver in our faith. Instead, have hope. With all our might, let us rebuild this society. We will draw strength from each other to accumulate our lost resources and to uplift our morale, to keep on dreaming and to proceed with our plans. This is just a setback for all of us, and in no time we can together bounce back in bringing the whole country through this challenging time. Uswag Iloilo.
Once again, thank you so much, Mayor Jerry Trinas. That was really inspiring and motivating. Thank you for motivating all the LGUs and all of us for helping us be reminded to never stop dreaming and proceed with our plans for us to be able to bounce back and bring the Philippines to its sphere. Thank you once again, Mayor Trinas. Together we will say, Uswag Iloilo. Step forward, Katbalogan, Uswag Samar, Uswag Philippines. So I understand we're now set for our Q&A. We request once again, Ma'am Reclines de la Serna, and to represent the Honorable Mayor of Iloilo, we have Ms. Maria Mathel de Octavio, the Special Assistant to the Iloilo City Mayor for the Q&A. So, okay. So we have the first question. The first question is for Ma'am Reclines. The question is, what are the strategies you made in letting the communities feel your efforts in battling poverty? Again, this question is to Ma'am Reclines. What were the strategies you made or the office were made by letting the people or the communities feel your efforts in battling poverty, especially during pandemic? Ma'am, please unmute po. Ma'am Reclines,
Yes.
please have
Yes.
your, thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Yes, good morning once again. Yes, NAPSI's effort in battling poverty, actually, we have these strategies even before the pandemic started. But yun nga, during this pandemic, kailangan namin parang i-fast track yung implementation ng aming programs. Para maramdaman ng tao na meron yung government, we already have this Kasambayanihan Volunteers Program na rooted on the barangay level. Meron tayong mga volunteers, we are organizing volunteers from the barangay. Bale, yung aim ng NAPSI with this strategy is to have at least 25 volunteers per barangay na ito yung parang tutulong dun sa government na mag-a-assist kung sino yung mga nangangailangan or sino yung hindi nakatanggap ng mga basic needs. Tapos itong mga volunteers na to are being oriented on how they will report it to NAPSI in partnership with our focal persons in the province. So, i-relay nila ito para at least makikita natin yung mga pangailangan, totoong pangangailangan ng ating mga kababayang mahihirap. So from there, ito ay kung ano yung mga kailangan ng mga communities or mga small organizations, ito ay ating idudulog kung saang uhensya ito nararapat na idudulog. So ito tayo yung nagpa-facilitate. Kasi SINAPSI is a secretariat and we are also a coordinating body of the national government.
Thank you so much po, Ma'am Reclines. So it means to say going into the very roots and letting people share their responsibility through your Kasambayanihan program. Thank you so much po, ma'am. At this time, let us proceed to the representative of the Iloilo Mayor, Ma'am Mathel de Octavio, ma'am. So here's the question. What do you think or how do you think these best practices of Iloilo be replicated for other LGUs? Again po, ma'am. Ma'am, how do you think these best practices can be replicated for other LGUs?
Good afternoon to everyone.
Hello po, ma'am. Hello po. Welcome to Samar State University.
Hello, welcome. I would like to welcome all the participants. I'm here to represent the mayor Trenyas because he is indisposed right now. So, as you have seen in our presentation, our champion advocacy is our close relationship with our strong relationship with the private sector. That has been the best practice of Iloilo ever since. And we have experienced that in a lot of projects here in Iloilo City. Especially now during the COVID pandemic, we have seen how Iloilo has moved. Though everyone was affected by the pandemic, including the business sector, but still, everyone was there and that never hesitated to help in their own way. So I think the best practice that everyone should we could be proud of is this practice, the strong public-private partnership.
Okay, so thank you so much po, ma'am. That was a great input for all of us, all of the LGUs, to always have a strong partnership, not only with the public, but also of the private sectors, involving everybody. Thank you po. So let us have a question from one of the participants. How do we ensure sustainability of poverty alleviation programs if our very energetic and inspiring Iloilo mayor would left the post? Again po, ma'am.
Come again?
Okay, ma'am. So here is, let me proceed to the question, ma'am. How does Iloilo continue to sustain its COVID-19 control measures? How does Iloilo continue to sustain its COVID-19 control measures? Thank you po.
Okay, thank you po. Right now, everything is in place. As the mayor has presented during his video, we have seen that we have placed experts in their own field in respective projects. Like for example, for the for the COVID team, the city has hired medical experts to address this. Also, we have hired a lot of medtechs. So what I mean hired are they are given plantilla positions to 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 address the needs of the city. Regarding our budget, this pandemic was never foreseen that it would happen. So what we did during the pandemic, we have realigned our budgets and prioritize the COVID needs. So a lot of projects were set aside, and this was given importance. Also, as I said, the strong help from the private sector. What I mean, the private sector is not only the local investors, but also from the national and international who has helped us.
Okay, thank you so much once again, ma'am. So it really shows that there is really a strong partnership between the LGU and the private sector. Not only that, there is also a strong collaboration among the people of Iloilo. Congratulations to that, ma'am. Thank you, thank you. Another question po, in terms po of unemployment, what initiative was done by the city to reduce unemployment amid the pandemic in your city? So what initiatives were done to make or to reduce unemployment amid the pandemic in your city? Thank you po, ma'am.
Okay, since March, most businesses were closed because of the lockdown that was experienced by the Philippines. Iloilo was one of them. We had our lockdown on March 21st, right a week after the national had its lockdown. So instead of reducing our employees, especially our job hard employees in the city, because the income of the city was reduced. What we did was we deducted a portion of their compensation by 25%. So 20%. So before, our staff, which are from the job hire employees, are receiving 500 a day. It was reduced to 400 because we prioritize that it's better that employees will still have income rather than letting go of some of the employees because of the city has reduced income. So until now, we do that. And then there's also the help from the national government on the special amelioration fund, which has helped a lot of those who have suffered, especially those who were unemployed in the barangays. So we are very thankful to our president and our national office that Iloilo is one of the recipients of the special amelioration fund. We also have the ano ba nito? Tupad, no? Tupad, no? The, the what tupad? The Tupad program, I think it's in partnership with Dole for those unemployed OFWs and local residents of Iloilo City. All of this we welcome very much and we're very thankful for it.
Thank you so much once again. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, thank you. So those are great inputs to all of us, to all the LGUs. So here is another question po, ma'am. From one of the participants, what do you think is the best thing to do in inspiring the volunteerism spirit in the conduct of PPA, Participation Poverty Assessment, that would help alleviate poverty? Again, what do you think is the best thing to do in inspiring the volunteerism spirit in the conduct of PPA that would help alleviate poverty? So that is participatory poverty assessment. Thank you po.
Is that question still for me? Hello? Excuse me. Is that question for me? So one of the best initiatives that we should do probably is pro, is
Yes.
provide skills training for our residents. That way, they would be able to learn that skill and be able to be self-sufficient. So right now we have ongoing trainings for those residents in the city who needs training and those who have lost their jobs. So we think that we believe in the saying that you teach a man how to fish and he'll never go hungry.
Ma'am, can I add on that?
Okay po. Yes, ma'am. Yes po, ma'am. So thank you so much, ma'am, for those sharings that you gave. We also are having an input from Ma'am Reclines. Thank you po. Ma'am Reclines, you may add.
Yes. To inspire, no, because volunteerism nowadays is very rare. Maliban lang kung talagang may advokasya ka for volunteerism, but to inspire our people to engage in volunteerism, no, or to have this volunteerism spirit, kailangan nating ipadama din sa kanila na merong gobyerno na nakikinig sa kanila. So aside doon sa, I agree with ma'am from LGU, Ma'am Mati, that providing skills training, no, para maging empowered yung ating mga kababayan, no, kasi isa ito sa kailangan nila para maging involved din sila. Kailangan may sapat na capacity training, mga skills training para sa kanila kung ano yung naaangkop sa kanila. Yung sa programa ng NAPSI, yung ini-encourage natin dito na kailangan may parte sila. So meaning, actually, mayroon kaming tinatawag na village eco-governance development framework and cooperation na naka-anchor ito doon sa kung ano yung maiko-contribute ng community. So, hindi lang yung sasabihin mo na, oh, ito yung programa ng gobyerno, pero hindi naman fit sa kanila. So, kailangan yung ibubuhay natin yung bottoms up na programa na kailangan yung suggestion manggagaling sa kanila kung ano yung mga resources na pwede nating i-develop from that community kasi para din to have sustainable in connection to the sustainability of livelihood programs. Kailangan yung magiging programa or livelihood programs ay manggagaling dun sa community. Kasi kung walang commitment sa kanila, paano sila mag-volunteer? So paano din magsusustain kung walang mga commitments? Kasi kailangan to a partnership between the community, the government, the private sector, and the other government agency para magsusustain tayo sa ating mga livelihood programs and to alleviate na din sa poverty natin.
Thank you so much po, Ma'am Herclines and Ma'am Matheldi, for those inputs that you gave us. And again, I would like to emphasize that you said that there must be a trust that government is listening to the pleas of the people. So there and starting from the people's need. Thank you so much. So we have one last question to Ma'am Reclines. And this question is, how do we attain the ambition natin 2040 given the challenges we are facing today and with the status of our economy? Again, how do we attain the ambition natin 2040 given the challenges we are facing today with the status of our economy?
Yes, medyo yun na kasi may target tayo to actually yung zero poverty for 2040 tapos yung target natin for 2022 to have a poverty incidence of 14% or lower. Medyo kailangang ipa-fast track yung mga programa ng government so to achieve this ambition natin 2040 as earlier mentioned, we have this Kasambayanihan Volunteers Program. Kailangan natin i-include doon sa ating mga programa yung grassroots talaga. Kasi kung titingnan mo yung poverty level natin or poverty line, nandun sa mga kabaranggayan, nandun sa mga rural areas, wherein sila yung mas nangangailangan na to share with them what are the programs of the government. Kasi may mga programa naman ang gobyerno, ang kulang lang natin is to inform the rural areas, kasi parang medyo kulang doon sa kanila yung information na may mga programa yung government for poverty alleviation. Iba-iba yon from Department of Agriculture, our DSWD, meron din programa yung DTI for this poverty alleviation programs of the government. So kailangan talaga natin magmula dun sa grassroots to inform them, to capacitate them, give them skills training para aangat yung kabuhayan ng ating mga kababayan. Once aangat yung kabuhayan ng ating kababayan, then for sure, we will achieve or close to achieving the ambition natin 2040.
Thank you so much po, Ma'am Reclines. Again, it goes back to always let people be participative in all the endeavors of the government. One last question po to the representative of Iloilo, Ma'am Octavio. How can LGUs be better prepared to fight COVID-19? Again, How can LGUs be better prepared to fight COVID-19? Hello, ma'am. Yes. Hello po, ma'am. Thank you po, ma'am. Ma'am Octavio. So here is the last question to the beautiful place represented by you, ma'am. How can LGUs be better prepared to fight COVID-19? So what input can you give? What inputs can Iloilo representative give to all the LGUs? How to be better prepared to fight COVID-19?
So, for Iloilo City, we should be face the situation ahead. So, like when the pandemic started, we saw in the news the situation and learned also from other countries regarding that. So, situation like I'll take So since there's a scarcity of that, even in the United States, what we did was our local sewers, the local sewers here made PPEs for our health workers, frontliners. So it was locally produced, the PPEs and even the mask. So for our, since it has been the policy of the city that everyone should wear face masks, we know that some of our constituents cannot afford to buy their masks. So the city has produced masks for everyone by using the flour sacks, recycled flour sacks, and the local sewers sue that, and then we gave masks for everyone. So our compliance team who goes around and check to see to it that everyone is wearing, is complying with the minimum health standards of IATF, gives everyone who doesn't have masks. But if frequently it is being done, then penalties are being implemented to them.
Okay,
So,
so thank you so much po, ma'am. Ma'am. Sige po, ma'am. You may add po, ma'am.
okay. So I hope you have learned some inputs from Iloilo City regarding our response for the COVID.
Thank you so much po, ma'am. We've learned a lot. We've learned a lot to this very motivating and inspiring city. Thank you so much. Your presence, again, Ma'am De La Serna and Mayor Trinias, represented by Ma'am Octavio, your presence and support gave the participants a clearer picture of the Philippines, of the scenario of poverty in various aspects today. So truly enough, you inspired everyone to take an action against poverty, even in his or her simple and small ways, because it starts from simple steps. Together, we will be able to have greater change. Thank you once again, Ma'am De La Serna and Mayor Rinas, represented by Ma'am Octavio. God bless you. God bless.
Thank you.
For questions, thank you so much. For questions where we're not answered, we will just forward them to our speakers and we'll send it back if answers are already available. So thank you once again, everybody. And lastly, let me cite the lines of Mary D. Moore, and I quote, I believe that the eradication of poverty stays within each one of us. When we walk in kindness and wisdom, we liberate ourselves and others from chains of scarcity. This is Florabel B. Patosa, the moderator of this plenary session, telling everybody, let us soar high, Uswag Philippines. Let us all live and rise above the crisis. May God bless us all. And this time, I'm turning you back to Mr. Junil Bahado. God bless everyone.
Thank you so much, Dr. Florabel Patosa, the moderator and the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences. So listening on the presentations of our resource persons, I have this conjecture that indeed we need a partnership and collaboration from the private sector, from the local government units, from the national government, and of course, more importantly, the dedication of the community. At this point, we will be giving certificates of appreciation, no, for our resource persons. So let me read the citation. Samar State University, in partnership with Northwest Samar State University and partner collaborators, awards the certificate of recognition to Ms. Reclines S. de la Serna in grateful recognition for her invaluable insights and expertise rendered as plenary speaker during the second International Conference on Poverty Alleviation and Sustainable Development held on October 21 to 23, 2020, given this 23rd day of October 2020, signed Dr. Marilyn D. Cardoso and Dr. Benjamin L. Picayo. Thank you so much, Ma'am de la Serna.
Thank you so
And
much.
yes, thank you po. We also have the same certificate of recognition given to the city mayor of Iloilo, the Honorable Jerry Treñas, of course, duly represented by Ma'am Mati Octavio. Thank you so much po sa input that you have given to us, especially for these initiatives of the city government of Iloilo. That was very interesting and inspiring. I think we will be hearing words from no less than the president of the Samar State University, Dr. Cardoso, ma'am.
Yes, thank you, Sir Junel. First, to Madam Reclines Mimi de la Serna, damo nga salamat. Thank you for sharing to us significant data on poverty and inequality in the Philippines amid COVID-19 crisis. On behalf of the organizers and the participants of this iPOVCON, I express my deepest gratitude to you for making the presence and the support of NAPSI, or the National Anti-Poverty Commission, felt in the iPOVCON 2020. Mabuhay po kayo. And of course, to the Honorable Mayor Jerry Treñas of Iloilo City, congratulations. Your COVID-19 initiatives are really inspiring and worthy of emulation. Thank you for sharing to us these initiatives in Iloilo. Mabuhay po kayo. And I would like also to acknowledge Madam Maria Matilde P. Octavio, the Special Assistant to the Iloilo City Mayor, for ably representing Mayor Triñas in the question and answer portion of the session. God bless. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Madam President. That was Dr. Marilyn D. Cardoso, the president of Samar State University. So thank you very much. Thank you so much, everyone. It has been a very insightful and fruitful morning. Thank you so much. This has been Jonil. Maupay nga udto ha aton nga tanan. See you in this afternoon session. Damo nga salamat. Okay, so we will be on the same link. We will be using the same link for this afternoon sitting. Again, damo nga salamat. God bless everyone. So another thing before we end, we will be playing the video from the NAPSI, which unfortunately was not heard during the presentation. So it will be played now through our audio-visual presentation. Thank you so much po, for all the participants, for our viewers at Facebook. Thank you so much. I hope you have learned a lot, especially from our very able resource persons, no? From, of course, our keynote speaker, yes, all the way from Australia, and complemented by the representatives from National Government Agency, the NAPSI, and of course our representative of the city mayor of Iloilo. Thank you so much. Damo nga salamat.
Under the mandate provided by the Republic Act No. 8425, the National Anti-Poverty Commission is created as the coordinating and advisory body for the implementation of the social reform agenda. The functions of NAPC include, among others, consultation and coordination with national government agencies, local government units, the basic sectors, and private stakeholders. Policy formulation and recommendation. Monitoring and evaluation of poverty alleviation programs of government instrumentalities. And advocating for the funding and full realization of the social reform and poverty alleviation agenda. Guided by the directive of the Honorable Rodrigo Roa Duterte, Philippine President and concurrent NAPC Chairperson, to reduce the country's poverty incidence to 14% by 2022, the NAPC Secretariat under the leadership of Secretary Noel K. Felonco introduces the Commission's 5-year development plan, Sambayanihan, Serbisyong Sambayanan. The plan aims to carry out a climate-responsive, culture and gender-sensitive, and convergent and participatory anti-poverty strategy to attain the administration's poverty reduction target and contribute to the realization of Ambition Natin 2040. Sambayanihan recognizes structural and systemic causes of poverty and is premised on developing urban agriculture and industry as the most important preconditions for overcoming poverty. Component programs being implemented under Sambayanihan include organizing and mobilizing of Kasambayanihan volunteers to act as barangay-based stewards of the government's poverty alleviation efforts. Assisting in the convening of local poverty reduction convergence platforms and consultative assemblies such as provincial consultative bodies with government and basic sector counterpart. Drafting of local poverty reduction plans as guided by Sambarangayan and Village Eco-Governance Development Framework. Implementation of poverty reduction through rural development in 7 prototype municipalities through partnership with PAGCOR. Providing sustained intervention and relocation sites through the Kabahagi Ka sa Kalusugang Pangkaunlaran at Kagalingang Panlipunan and the Integrated Resettlement Sites Development Plan. In partnership with the basic sector component of the Commission, NAPC has conducted regional sectoral assemblies and the convening of the basic sector councils and technical working committees in preparation for the National Sectoral Assembly. Through these activities, the representation of the 14 basic sectors have provided an opportunity for the sectors to participate in the decision-making processes in the government under the principle of participatory governance. Furthermore, NAPC with the current Sectoral Representative Council is implementing a post-distribution monitoring survey which would assess the efficiency and effectivity of government interventions during the COVID-19 pandemic. With the signing of the landmark legislation, Republic Act No. 11291 or the Magna Carta of the Poor, the Commission Secretariat has launched a nationwide consultation with 14,305 representatives of civil society organizations and 9,461 representatives of local government units, as well as multiple interagency meetings with national government agencies and other government instrumentalities. Pending the President's approval of the Magna Carta's implementing rules and regulations, NAPSI has also initiated the groundwork for the mandated National Poverty Reduction Plan. Recognizing the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic in the overall poverty reduction efforts, NAPSI has harmonized Sambayanihan's strategic convergences in an effort to assist in the mitigation of the immediate effects of the pandemic and in the provision of developmental foundation in response to its long-term socio-economic impacts. In front of the limitations provided by the pandemic, the Commission's Kasambayanihan volunteers organized command posts in their respective communities and assisted local government units and line agencies alike as helping hands and force multipliers. The Commission has also remained steadfast in its commitment in the monitoring and facilitation of sectoral and community concerns during the pandemic and the subsequent imposition of quarantines. For 2021, the NAPSI Secretariat renews its vigor to contribute with relevant stakeholders to effect inclusive and sustainable development. The challenge is difficult, but the fruits of our labor are all the more rewarding. A better normal awaits the Filipino people. Towards a healthy and resilient Philippines from the National Anti-Poverty Commission.